is awesome. I love this audience. This is like, to me, this is the best room in search right now. All right, let me get out of Mike's slides here. Get out of thank the sponsors. This is me. Cool. I am so happy to be with you all here today because this is, tech SEO is really where I started out. I started out in SEO over at HubSpot, and y'all are my people. So I've got some real goodies prepped here. We are going to dive into some of the most data that I think anyone's ever seen on the subject of AEO. It's going to be a lot of this high-level stuff. So just looking forward to jumping in. Cool. Name is Josh Blyskal. I head up AI strategy over at Profound. Profound is a New York City-based startup which enables marketers to understand, take action on, and tangibly improve their visibility and citations within AI search. Cool. We analyzed over 250 million AI responses for this presentation, over 3 billion citations. So like half of the people on Earth can have a citation basically from our data set. Across these 8 answer engines, all the big ones, we've got ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, we've got Google, both AI overviews and AI mode. We've got Gemini. I'm not even going to, it's these. We got all the big ones. We're testing queries that are both informational and commercial, so really wide intent span there. And it's my belief that the findings we're going to share today are going to change the way you think about search. So before we even start, we got to align. This is the boring part. First things first, AI in the last 12 months has cemented its position within search, right? Like ChatGPT is the 5th most viewed website in the world. SEMrush says it's the 4th most viewed website. I'm going to go conservative and say 5th. And I love this stat. There are 2 billion monthly active users of Google AI overviews. I think this is like super underrepresented stat. Very interesting overall, though. It's safe to say right now that search is undergoing a fundamental shift right now. This is the old dichotomy. I always like to point to this. The user, the website, the user goes to the website hosts the content for the user. That bond is strong. It's never broken, right? This is the world with answer engines. Answer engines sit in between the user and the website. Answer engines arbitrate whether or not the brand, the product, or the service deserves to make it to the final answer or deserves to influence or resolve that answer for the user. And so in that way, the AI model now owns a large chunk of this relationship. So the big question right now is this: what drives this relationship? And I'm excited because we took some time last week to analyze 1,311. This is very specific, it's very important, my analysts tell me we should say the exact number. It helps build credibility. So 1,311 pages last week to answer a question on everyone's mind. How much weight do key SEO metrics carry for AEO? I am going to say right here, right now, that SEO, everybody knows this, SEO is the bedrock foundational layer of AEO. Everyone knows this, right? So look at this. We see these beautiful slopes, referring domains, total backlinks, authority score. There is a relationship between some of these key SEO metrics and AEO performance, no doubt. But the thing I really want to draw your attention to is the strength, the predictive power of that relationship. Let's look at the R squared. 0.066, 0.044, and 0.009, which basically means that if you sum all these up, we're only predicting between 4 and 7% of all citation behavior. And yes, these are only 3 SEO metrics, and they're 3 kind of derivative ones at that. But based on a few of these key metrics, we've got a little bit of predictive power. So what is driving the other 93 to 96%? I know what everyone's going to think right now. Of course, it's going to be content. It's going to be freshness. It's going to be citation factors. We'll dive into that. But we did this great, it's a residual analysis. So basically, mathematically, what I did is I took all the citation data, took all the metrics, and we predicted where each of the actual pages should have landed if they were perfectly predictive. What that basically means is you would expect, if the relationship was very explainable, to see this line, this 0 line, be where all of the little dots basically coalesce. It means that basically based on our data, we predicted it correctly. What do we see? It looks like a scattergun. It's everything, it's everywhere. What that basically means is that there are other things that are either making content overperform, which is everything above the 0 line, or underperform, which is under the 0 line. And we're going to discover what those things are in AEO today. So traditional SEO metrics are essential, but they're not going to solely drive your AEO visibility gains. We've got to talk about it. The first thing I want to really, this is really essential. The ground truth here is that answer engines see only a few pieces of your actual page's data before they decide if they're going to cite you. This is really the billboard advertisement that an answer engine sees when it's like, do I care about this or do I not? Am I going to skip over this or am I not? It sees the URL, it sees the title tag, it sees the meta description, and it sees a snippet from the piece of content. So let's first dive into URLs. URLs market the page to the AI. So when answer engines go over to a page, when they're looking at a page, they want to understand, what is it that I'm going to be clicking on? Is this worth the click? Does this click give me confidence that I'm going to find the answer to the user's question here? Or do I need to go somewhere else? Which is why I have these great examples, right? Like literally these three are like most ethical and sustainable clothing brands, sustainable brands, how to shop for clothes. And then if we look at the kind of shitty ones here, A8, DF31, ethical 92, 3K brands, right? The deal here is that is all, randomly generated CMS crap, right? If an answer engine sees that stuff, it is not going to know, does this contain the answer? Does this not contain the answer? And we did some great analysis here. Over 100,000 pages, we found that natural language URLs, so between 5 to 7 pure, it has to contain all words and or a year, earned everything else consistent 11.4% more citations than comparable pages. 11.4% more citations for natural language entirely URLs that basically describe what that page's content is about. This is insane, by the way. This is something totally different. This is called a SHAP analysis. And we looked at semantic alignment. So we've got the natural URL thing. This is literally a probability distribution. So what we're looking at on the x-axis here is semantic alignment, right? Things that are not semantically aligned all the way to things that are super semantically aligned. To the query. What's the best running shoe, right? To the query. Things that are on the y-axis are basically whether or not everything below the zero is you're being punished, everything above the zero is you're being helped. You got headwinds, right? Or you got tailwinds, sorry. So, well, we can find all other things being consistent. You can get up to a 5% citation gain by semantically aligning the URL, not to the response, not to an answer, but actually by putting it in a question format and aligning it to the query. And that is a pretty strong, by the way, statistical relationship across tens of thousands of pages. It's a very interesting finding as well. Answer engines, we're going to talk about like semantic chunks. Everyone rolls their eyes. Answer engines do not have a summarization feature in the actual RAG pipeline. Answer engines do not have a summarization feature in the RAG pipeline. What does that mean? That means that when they're going to look at your piece of content, they are only going to be able, just like Mike said, they're only going to be able to extract a certain amount of textual data from that piece of content at a time. If your content, if your answer is spread across 5 paragraphs, if it's extremely long-winded, you will miss out on the opportunity to influence that net response, to actually change what the user would actually be able to see. So you have to densify that specific answer to make sure that it can fit within that snippet, that context size. All right, titles. We're going to do another SHAP analysis. This one's even tighter than the URL one. Titles actually result in up to a 6% citation gain. I'm not going to explain the X and Y axis again. I will actually. All right, the title alignment is here, semantic title alignment, and then the percentage either of headwind and tailwind is there. This one's just good to take a picture of because that's the situation, right? Well semantically aligned titles result in more citations, all other things being consistent across tens of thousands of pages. Spoil your content in your meta description. I wish I had a SHAP analysis for this. I can't get a SHAP analysis for spoiling your content. That's what at least the analysts are telling me right now. The deal is this. We were working with a few different companies. The best example I have for this is that we were working with someone in the corporate card space. They came to us and they told us, hey, we want our page to be the #1 most cited piece of content in the industry, but the only problem is we're completely getting beaten right now. What can we do? Well, we looked at the #1 most cited piece of content, and the #1 most cited piece of content literally used the meta description as like an answer snippet. It said, the best corporate card is A, B, C, and D. And the answer engines were like, great, okay, I'll just take that and run. And as a result, that citation rate was almost 2x anything else of any of the competitors. So the meta description here is almost like a marketing vehicle for answer engines. JavaScript, we'll touch on JavaScript really briefly. This is a great chart just to look at and see. These are the actual answer engines that can render JavaScript and cannot render JavaScript in the retrieval process. There's lots of discussions whether or not that can happen in the training process, but when you're actually asking an answer engine, what's on Levi's site? ChatGPT, if it's JavaScript rendered and the prices are dynamic, won't see it. Perplexity won't see it. Claude won't see it. Gemini and Copilot are, obviously, because they're basically based on those original search engine scrapers. Not a problem there, but very interesting, especially for working with clients or customers that either have an antiquated infrastructure or they have tons of dynamic content. The thing I always drive towards, if they do have those things and their site is extremely JavaScript focused, let's focus on Gemini. Gemini is already growing in market share. It's a really nice pivot. Answer engines have a recency bias. Let's talk about recency bias. This is insane, by the way. 50% of content this is 50% of top cited content, rather. This is in like the top, I think, half of all cited content, is less than 13 weeks old. 50% of content is less than 13 weeks old, and you can get to 75% of content at 26 weeks. So 75% of content that's going to earn any real citations is less than like 8 months old, 7 months old. That one's a really important step because what it means is that your publishing cadence in AEO can actually be a competitive advantage. Freshness is a really important signal in this system. And the reason for that, beyond, we can talk about query fanout very briefly. We'll talk about query fanout just a little bit more. But the reason for that is because these answer engines in the query fanouts are asking for fresh content. What's the best hot yoga spot in San Diego 2025? What's the best corporate credit card December 2025? You can see how these signals are being invoked in the actual fanout before even the searcher doesn't ask for it. The answer engine's basically injecting this need for freshness into the process. Content is king. That's not a reference to Mike. AI search is lazy. So let's talk about how it's lazy. This one, I think, a lot of us could see coming. This is why I love being in this room. Guess what? Listicles are now the second most cited type of content in AI search. Who could have guessed that the #1 hack in this space was going to be degraded down to second position? So blog and opinion content has taken the top spot. It was in the top spot back in like August or September before all the listicle stuff happened. So listicles now and blogging content basically account for 61% of all net-on-net citations. Interesting, right? I'm going to basically just call this like hyper-opinionated content. So if we're looking at both of these, this recently just happened. The reason why this content wins right now in AI search is very clear. If an answer engine is going to be asked a question other than being used in deep thinking mode or deep research mode, the answer engine needs to go out to the web in 3 seconds, find a framework of analysis, and present it back to the user as if it's its own opinion. So if I ask, what's the best men's running shoes? The answer engine is going to go out to the open web. It's going to hit on a listicle piece of content that says, these are the 9 best ones. And it's going to hit on a blog piece of content that says, I tried 50 of them. Here's how to think about it. Here's the right thing. And it's going to grab the 3 of the top from the listicle. It's going to grab 2 of the ones from the blog content. And it's going to present it to the user. Why? Because answer engines are lazy. That's the truth. All right. And this is what happens when you actually get to write for this laziness. We work with Ramp, fintech, based out of New York. We're based out of New York. We love New York companies. We worked with Ramp to write literal pieces of content directly opinionated using frameworks of analysis right on Ramp's site. We 7x'd their citation rate within a month. Now I'm going to pivot entirely. I want to talk more about UGC. So these sources, beyond just being some of the top cited sources in answer engine search and AI search in general, I kind of gave away the answer. What do they have in common? What they have in common is that they're all UGC. And answer engines rely very heavily on UGC content as what I'm calling an information class. Like, I love Reddit, but whether it's Reddit or not, the important thing here is that Reddit is basically an example of how ChatGPT, for instance, indexes on human opinion. It is basically just an analog for what do real people think of this. So when Reddit citations go up and Reddit citations go down, in my opinion, what I basically think about is how much do we care about putting real human opinions in our answers versus not. So let's talk about it. Reddit still, no matter the crazy volatility around it, is still the #1 cited source in AI search, aggregated across all models. That's very important as a distinction. It's first among Perplexity, second in AI overviews, second in ChatGPT, first in AI mode, and what is it, 17th in Copilot? Yeah, 17th in Copilot. Your brand's visibility, and I think I really want everyone to kind of grok this. Your brand's visibility is very much impacted by what happens now in a channel like Reddit or a channel like Quora. These spaces where these conversations happen are now search surfaces. YouTube. YouTube is the second most cited source in AI search, period. It's the first in Google AI overviews, second in Perplexity, third in AI mode, second in Gemini, 64th in Copilot, and 138th in ChatGPT. It's basically relevant for ChatGPT. And this is the graph of actually where that trend is actually happening. I want to show everyone that. The other thing that I put on this graph is the fact that certain sources here can actually see the transcript. And so no doubt, Perplexity is the #1 citer of YouTube. It can see the transcript. Google AI Overviews can see the transcript. AI Mode can see the transcript. Gemini can see the transcript. No shock, ChatGPT in red cannot see the transcript. And as a result, maybe one way or another, they're basically not citing YouTube. Another great thing here, Perplexity cites YouTube very weirdly. This is the engagement data from YouTube videos for Perplexity citations and actually all the other answer engines. So all this data basically, for all the other answer engines, they basically cite YouTube averagely, like basically across the same level of kind of engagement, the same level of views. But Perplexity is willing to cite videos that have half as many views, have no comments. So for Perplexity right now, less than 1,000 views. 37% of Perplexity's YouTube citations have less than 1,000 views. We took a general sample of 1,000 YouTube videos, 26% have less than 1,000 views. Perplexity almost doubles the percentage chance that they're going to cite something that's less than 100 views than general YouTube, which is 11.3% of YouTube videos have less than 100 views. So Perplexity is really doing the YouTube search very semantically. And answer engines overwhelmingly prefer recent YouTube videos. This is the recency piece. So answer engines, 88.1% of Google AI Overview citations for YouTube videos happen between 2023 and 2025 published videos. So everything else in general YouTube, though, only 50% of actual YouTube, and this is actually an insane stat, 50% of YouTube videos, by the way, this is just totally an aside. I'm not a YouTube specialist, but we found this as part of our research. 50% of YouTube has actually been created in the last like 2 or 3 years. It stands to reason, like there's exponentially more data, exponentially more information on the web, but I found that stat was just wild. I wanted to say it. So to summarize the content piece, the content that wins in AEO is content that answers directly and takes a position. So you've got your blogs and listicles, you've got your semantic URLs. Semantic chunks are the delivery mechanism of all of this. LLMs want to consume this structured data, opinionated content, things that deliver them value immediately. And social and UGC are now search surfaces. So the social team, the PR team, the comms team, these folks need to be looped in. This is an opportunity for all of us. These folks can be looped in, and these things do impact our net visibility. All right, now we're going to talk about a little bit of infrastructure here as well. We're going to talk very briefly about query fanout. So everyone knows fanout basically, and Mike did a great job. We're going to take the long prompt, and we're going to basically either, there's grounding searches, there's fanout. We're going to turn it into a series of summarized questions that we're going to ask directly to our search provider. 6 months ago, I said that ChatGPT and Google had 19% overlap at the domain level. And I used prompts for that analysis because we didn't have that much scalable query fanout data. So how has our understanding actually adapted and changed now that we have millions of query fanouts? ChatGPT query fanouts overlap 39% at the domain level with the Google SERP. 39% at the Google SERP. But even at 39%, that alignment is not necessarily that strong. And it's an answer to your question, Mike. Bing isn't driving shit. Bing is driving like 9% of citations now. Bing is not part of the story anymore. But if we're going to talk about LLM attention here, even at that 39% overlap, is spread very, and many people have a problem with this graph, and I have a problem with the graph too. I don't think it's a perfect analog, so I wouldn't index too heavily on this. Basically, what we're taking here is we're taking known, SERP click-through rates, and then we're taking LLM citation rates, and I'm calling this basically like human attention versus LLM attention. Fine, it's the best analog we have right now. LLM attention is spread more equitably through the SERP than human attention is. So there is real value to ranking a little bit lower on the SERP. You can still win if you're ranking lower, if you're ranking absurdly low. There is genuine LLM attention that goes down there. And really the important part, the thing, I snuck this slide in. I really want to make it clear that if you are not indexed in Google, you are putting yourself in a position where you are going to have headwinds from being cited by ChatGPT. I have customers who come to me every single day and say, can we do no index pages? Can we hide pages from users? Can we do something super mercurial? Can we do a bunch of cloaking stuff? It's like, if the page doesn't exist for Google, it's not going to exist in SERP API, and SERP API is, reportedly, the partner, third-party partner for ChatGPT. If you're not in Google, it's going to be less discoverable in general. I wanted to make that clear. But there is a little bit of a fun hack around caching. So this was something, sorry, Patrick, because I was putting this slide in last night. You can actually forcibly refresh ChatGPT's cache of a page, and you can test the refresh cache of the page using both the UI and the API. So I can go into ChatGPT's UI and say, tell me what's on this weather page. ChatGPT will be like, thanks, I now know what's on the weather page. You can then go into the API, set external web access to false, and then you can go and get the API's answer. And this literally can work within a minute. The API's answer will then feature the cached result from the actual URL that you just cached in the UI, almost in real time. So there is this kind of question of like instantiating caching and going through some of your key URLs as you make changes and asking ChatGPT to literally visit them and look at them as a way to keep that information up to date. Again, this is yesterday. I literally did this yesterday, so I don't know the knock-on effects of it. But what else can we use QFO for? My belief is that QFO is the single best tool for taking control of this company to answer, this answer engine relationship, rather. QFO is incredibly impactful. So 89% of prompts, this is a little stat about QFO, 89% of prompts generate between 2 and 3 search queries. That's important to know just as kind of background context. But this is a customer we were working with, a major customer in the food industry, by the way. The prompt that they had was, where to buy pumpkin or cinnamon ingredients suited to fall cocktails? And the customer was like, well, why don't we just write a piece of content about, like, in true AEO fashion, 10 best places to buy pumpkin or cinnamon spice ingredients for fall cocktails. And what we immediately saw with the QFO was like, no, the QFO is saying gourmet spice shop. What you need to actually rank for, the place to actually intersect your content is at the level of gourmet spice shop, not at the level of pumpkin, not at the level of fall cocktails, not at the level of cocktail ingredients. It is literally ranking for something entirely different than what the marketer's perception may be based on the prompt that they're running in the system. That is why QFO is so important, because it gives you the ability to target into the specific prompt you need to understand where your content needs to live truly as arbitrated by these answer engines. So you need to align your content to the query fanouts. We've got to align our content. Commerce, I'm going to hit on briefly. We are going to move. I'm so happy about this, by the way. We're going to move from scraping to product feeds. The feed will be at the center of commerce. So what do I mean by that? If I asked Macy's, or if I asked ChatGPT rather, ChatGPT, what are the best men's belts that are in stock at Macy's? We will look back in a year and see and think that ChatGPT's current method of literally going out and doing RAG and trying to forcibly see what's on Macy's site is the most antiquated, kind of cobweb way of doing this that we could have ever perceived. Because ChatGPT could run into the rendering errors, the issues with accessing the content, real-time stock, all of that. ChatGPT eventually, very soon, beyond just having this product feed for like Shopify and Etsy, will have product feeds across the board. And ChatGPT will connect directly with Macy's. It'll say, hey, Macy's, searcher wants to understand how many belts are in stock, what belts are in stock, and what the stock is, anything on sale as well. And then Macy's is going to ping ChatGPT back and say, here's what's in stock, here's the situation. And then the user is going to see the things that are in stock factually, immediately. We can think about this right now. ChatGPT has an Uber connector. When someone asks ChatGPT, book me a ride from Manhattan to Brooklyn, what ChatGPT is not doing is it's not going over to the Uber app and it's not trying to scrape Uber or interface with the front end of Uber. It's going to connect with Uber on the back end, pull the data through, and then populate to the user. That's the future of commerce and answer engines. So we need to think about, we're not all from Fortune 500s. Many of us, this Shopify, Etsy product feed doesn't necessarily apply to us today at all. The thing that I'm trying to make imperative is that we can, though, think like Fortune 500s. We can get ready for this movement. We can start thinking about how our products, our services will appear in answer engine search, where they will appear in structured data, where they will appear in a product feed. Field completeness, absolutely essential. If you want to win long tail queries, don't miss your dimensions field. Don't miss your pricing field. Don't miss the materials field. I'll give you an example. Someone asking, I'm traveling to a conference in Europe. What's a good compact suitcase for me. If someone goes and asks that question to ChatGPT and you're missing the dimensions field on your product, you may well miss the long tail search because the answer engine may not know that your product is by nature compact. You can't necessarily trust that a one-to-one mapping of your PDP is going to reliably get you to that long tail search. This is just a great reference piece. Each AI does use a different commerce protocol and partners. This is great. And this is a really great piece of data as well. These are the top most frequently shown product factors. The actual factors that relate to showing up more often in AI search on a product side, FAQs showed up 848% more often in top-sided pages than they did for bottom-sided pages. Video showed up 103% more. Product ratings, products with 36% higher ratings showed up. You can see it here. Basically, these are what relates to getting your PDP cited. And this is something that's just knocking around in my mind. The response is the new SERP. I think there is this flattening effect that's happening right now in answer engines where, if I asked what's the best hotel in New York, the absolute best hotel in New York, I could see a SERP from Google. I could see the answer from Atlas. I don't care whether or not Atlas gets adoption. And frankly, I personally don't think it will get mass adoption. I think the important thing is that if we're thinking about search on a spectrum from ChatGPT to Google, the 10 blue links, search is going to move closer and quicker to being more like ChatGPT across the board, across the industry. And Atlas really is a preview into the future of how search interactions are going to work. Because the SERP and the web page are kind of getting flattened into one thing. I don't have any takeaway there. That's just what's bouncing around in my mind. This is why I love this conference, because you can just bring those things up. So what does all this mean for you? This is a moment where the customer and the brand are further apart maybe than ever before from a search perspective, that these answer engines are arbitrating what's going on. So now is the time to build your muscle. This is what's hot right now. These are the things I talked about: building on Reddit, brand community, aligning content to query fanouts, FAQs, win PDPs, semantic chunks. They're the vehicle. Think about your product as a JSON. You can think like a Fortune 500 right now. This is what Profound does, by the way. You can track your AI visibility. We can show you how often you're showing up in answer engine responses. You can find out which pages matter most. We track citations across the board. You can explore prompt and topic volume. Each topic, each prompt, you can understand real volumes from real searchers as they go through the process. You can see content. We can build you content that's architected to be cited. So what I want to leave you with, beyond just a QR code to actually get these slides, you can get the slides by scanning the QR code, is the fact that, as SEOs, I think we have a tremendous, we have a massive opportunity right now to, I hope I'm not blocking it, by the way. This is good. We have a tremendous opportunity. This is the moment when we can raise our hands to the CMOs, to the CEOs, and say, we know this stuff. We're ready. This is our moment. And so what I want you all to know is that AI search is already, but it's even going to get more important in the future. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. Thank you all. Enjoy.
Wait.